Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another week of Unscrambled Faith, and I just want to thank you again so much for cozying up and hanging out with me for another week, another message. So I hope everyone is having a great week to start to your week so far. And as usual, kind of like I think the way I've started to start off any of my podcasts so far, is just showing off my earrings. Because if y'all haven't already caught on, I do have quite an eclectic group of earrings, quite the collection. And I think one of my like quirky, off the wall, nothing to do with this podcast things that I'll be doing is changing my earrings up every week just for you guys. Yeah, just for fun. My little quirky something. So let's go ahead and just dive into it. So one thing I thought was pretty interesting that I had kind of going back and forth as far as what I wanted to share with y'all this week, what I want to talk about, and I had listened to the online church message for the church that I listened to over the weekend on Sunday, and one thing I thought was really cool, I don't know if y'all can relate to this or not, but I love when I have moments when there's something that I share with somebody, or, for example, in this case, it was what I talked about this last week during last week's podcast, where I did touch base a little bit about kind of like overcoming obstacles and diving into like the things that we want to go for, and not really necessarily listen to like the naysayers, right? And the big hairy scary things that we want to do, just going for it, right? And for the gusto and challenging ourselves and doing something like huge, like something impactful in our life, right? Despite what other people are saying. And one thing I thought was pretty interesting is, with that being said, what I talked about last week was thinking and reflecting back on the service that I listened to this last Sunday. And what I love so much is when you have moments when there's like one thing that you say or you hear, and it falls right into line and it falls right into place with something else, right? Some people like to call them like little glimmer moments. I like to call them little God moments, but it's kind of all the same to me, where I feel like that there's not exactly, I feel like it's very intentional. I feel like everything truly happens for a reason. That's my belief. Everything happens for a reason, and I just love when there's like little sprinkles in time, little moments where everything just kind of aligns, right? And there's something on your heart, there's something that somebody has said to you, and you just hear it more than once. And I feel like that the more you hear it, it resonates further and further along. So that's kind of like what happened, where I had a completely different plan for this weekend. I kind of had I had my mindset. My mindset was made up, right? My mind was already made up, and I had an idea what I want to talk about. But I feel like I really had to pivot after Sunday, because after hearing the service from Sunday, I was like, well, this is like the perfect segue, right? So this week we're going to talk about and dive into a little bit more in depth of how do we determine our own happiness, and what does that look like? And one thing that I really thought about, whenever I thought about this, whenever I was reflecting on, how do we determine our own happiness, is, I feel like there are moments in my life personally in the past where I have had, specifically speaking to the jobs that I've had. I've come into many encounters, and I feel like the encounters really truly took place when I was reflecting back on it over the last couple of days, that I feel like a lot of this started taking place like into my like late 20s, early 30s. And I feel like that when I was switching jobs and with the different careers that I had, that it never feels that there was this one person, whether it was like a coworker or a boss, but there were certain kind of situations that I feel like that I was put in, um, unknowingly or not, that I didn't really feel either like comfortable, or I had somebody that I worked with that was a little bit more challenging, that maybe I didn't agree with, or butted heads with, or maybe there was a toxic work environment. And for one, I don't really know if there's any correlation or not for the fact that I didn't really have a lot of those experiences in my early 20s. And I think maybe, if I really truly am being transparent and honest with y'all, I feel like that in my early 20s, I was really in for it for just the paycheck. Like, I was there for just the paycheck. I really wasn't looking to go further up in whatever career it was that I had, whatever company it was that I worked for. And I was just there, and my mindset was like for a temporary basis to get whatever it was out of that I needed to, just temporarily. And then I was always looking for like the next best thing, the next shiniest thing. And I feel like with that mindset, I think I was maybe perhaps oblivious to any outliers that were happening with each of those jobs in my early 20s, where I was just there to have fun, and I was like partying on the weekends, and I was partying at night, and I was in college and going to school to get my degree. But I feel like with the jobs that I had, the jobs were a lot of fun, and that's what I wanted. I remember my mindset for so long was like, I'm not going to work for anyone where I'm miserable and I'm unhappy. If I'm going to work somewhere, it's either going to be somewhere where I like where I'm working, I like what they're selling, or I'm going to work for somewhere that I'm going to have fun, right? So that was like the overall thesis and theme, I feel like, for my 20s. But going into my late 20s and early 30s, interesting enough, when I think back on the different types of careers and jobs that I had and the different people that I worked for, pretty much more often than none, there was at least one or two people that I can think of that I was working with, that created that toxic work environment, that really didn't have like my best interest at heart. So one thing I think that is important for us to consider is that if we don't stand on guard when we're in those certain type of situations, that there will be individuals who do come into our lives who want to destroy our joy and our happiness. So I know from going into like my 20s into my early 30s that it was really a transitional period for myself, where it was not only self-discovery of putting myself through therapy and, working through all the kinks and through a lot of the baggage and trauma, that I had experienced through childhood and further up as I, was getting older, and just kind of like breaking down those moments to where, I was really truly working on myself and wanting to not only be a better version of myself, but then I wanted to be better for those around me, right? And taking that course of action and trying to better myself and figure out, I want to be, healthier, like mentally, spiritually, physically as well. So with all of that being said, I feel like that I was entering a time in my life where, like I said, I couldn't help but start noticing, because I was peeling back the layers and I was more observant and paying a lot more closer attention to like how I'm feeling and things that were affecting me, that then it became a little bit more apparent and a little bit more obvious that I did have individuals in my life that I feel like that were out to destroy my joy and my happiness, because I was, like I said, working on myself, right? And I was wanting better for myself, and I was wanting to level up, and I had big dreams, and I had big ideas for myself. But here's the thing, is that unfortunately, and you may or may not be able to relate to this now, or maybe perhaps this is bringing up something that happened to you at another time, that I did have individuals, I had people in my life at that time, whether I was working with them or they were like personal friends, or as I thought they were friends, but not really, that were not exactly happy for my happiness, right? And they're there for me through the times when I'm down, like not really necessarily I could say like there for me, but we're kind of wallowing in that not so great time, right? Like, what do we want to call that? Like darkness, or just going with the flow and just having fun, right? Like no goal, no mindset, no positive aspect on life, just kind of going with the flow and having fun and partying and doing all the things. And I couldn't help but, think about like that those people that were in my life, whether I was working with them or not, preferred that version of myself, like the messed up, the traumatic, the one that's not, you could tell she has the weight of the world on her shoulders, not really working through it at that time, the person that was masking, that's the word I'm looking for, that was masking, those people in my life preferred that version of myself. But whenever I was kind of turning over a new leaf and I was happier and I was exciting things were coming into my life, they weren't necessarily for that, right? And again, those individuals, those toxic individuals, can be people that are your boss. They can be your neighbor. They can be your family member. Did you hear that one? They can be your family member. That to me is heavy in itself. So that, yeah, we're just going to pin that. I don't want to, that's a bit of a rabbit hole, but just reflect on that a little bit. And those who think that they are our friends, right? That's a big one. That's another heavy one for you. It's important for us, not only just for you, but for me too, but for us in general to, quit giving other people the power, right? I feel like it's imperative. It's so important for us to own our beings, own ourselves, own our identities, and to take back the power. Because I feel like that when we relinquish power over to somebody else, and we let somebody that's gonna, steal, kill, and destroy us, if we're allowing them to have the upper hand, then that's when someone's going to take advantage of us, and they're going to see that we are making those changes, right? That we don't want to live the life that we've been living for so long, that we want better for ourselves. And you know what? It's okay, because not everybody is going to be on the same page as you are. But the hard truth is that those are the people that we have to leave behind. And I know that that's easier said than done, especially when it comes to, I feel like, coworkers, because there's certain positions I know that we're put in that we just can't get out of it for whatever, the cost, whatever the reason, for personal reasons or professional reasons, that we have that boss that we just really just don't want to show up and work for, right? But we have to have that job because, right, we have bills to pay, we have responsibilities, we have to show up. Or it could be that you are living in a hostile situation in your housing community, and you're in a situation where you just can't find another place right now, so you're having to just put up with your neighbor, right? I feel like that it's important for, if you're in those situations where you find yourself stuck and you feel stuck and you just, for whatever reason, you're like, Megan, I just can't get out of this, then that's where it's important to start establishing and figuring out how can you set those boundaries between you and that other person. Because again, toxic people are going to identify when you're trying to make changes in your life, when you're wanting to better yourself, when you're wanting happiness for your life, when you're wanting to turn over a new leaf. And especially when it's the more drastic, the more scary it is for everybody that's in your pool of life. Like I said, your neighbors, specifically your family and your friends, because they're going to start noticing those changes within you, right? And to you and to myself, I know that those are big, positive, great, awesome changes that you're making. But to somebody that's an outlier, that's maybe perhaps not on the same journey that you're on, they are going to take offense. They're going to come for you left and right. And it's important, again, to put that wall up and to protect yourself, protect your peace, specifically your peace. When someone bothers you, and they will, because you'll know when they bother you, it's going to get under your skin. I like to say bless and release them, but let it go. Let it go. And I will say that is so simple and so easy. And it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be simple. Just let them go. I know that there are situations, again, that you're in that you can't necessarily, walk away. Like for family members, perhaps you're in a predicament, in a situation where you have family members that you, for whatever reason, still have to be around. Either you're living with them right now temporarily, or maybe perhaps they're helping take care of your kids. Maybe perhaps you're a healthcare provider for them. There's certain situations that I understand that we just can't get out of for whatever reason. And if that's the case, that's where those boundaries are going to need to be established. And it's okay to keep people at arm's length, because especially if you're doing it to protect not only yourself but your journey, because you're wanting better for yourself, you're wanting to elevate yourself. And it's like you almost have to mourn, because I've had to do that in the past. Like I've actually had to make peace and mourn that there are individuals that are coming and going in my life. There are friends that I'm going to carry with me through seasons of my life, that the universe, that the spirit, whatever you want to name it, refer to it as, is telling me in my heart that it's time to release them, because they've served their purpose, or I've served my purpose in their life, either way, vice versa. But it's time to bless and release them, because either they're getting to where they're too toxic for our lives, they're too toxic for my life, or it could be that we've had a really great run, we've had a really great friendship, but we just don't really have that much in common anymore, and it's time for me to move on. Like, I appreciate you, thank you for everything you've done, but then it's just kind of like time to walk away. And sometimes we even need closure, right? We even need closure, especially if you want to end on a more positive note. But on the other hand, like I said, there are others that it's not really that great of a situation. So whatever the case may be, whether you can get out of it or you can't get out of it, just make sure that you're putting the work in to, at least, like I said, put that wall up, distance yourself from that toxic individual, from the toxic people, as much as you can, because the last thing that you want is to pedal back, right, from all the progress that you're making. One thing's for sure is that God will take care of those who are trying to tear you down and break your spirit. God will give us the grace to persevere. And I can say first and foremost that I am a believer, and I can testify that I have been there, done that. When I was listening to the specific service over this last weekend, one thing that in particular came to mind instantly was when I used to work for a retail company. I used to work in retail for, gosh, I think it was like, together for both areas, it was like, maybe like 7 years, 6, 7 years, something like that, all in total. But the very first retail job that I had, there was this individual, this person, we'll just say person, that I worked with, okay? And he was extremely toxic. There was a situation that had come up where he was actually like temporarily standing in for our boss at the time, okay? And he had that personality to where when that happened, power basically got to him mentally, and he was abusing power. And when I tell you that this individual was manipulative, that he was hell-bent on making my life hell, miserable. I mean, I remember showing up to work, and he was very catty, very gossipy with like the other coworkers that we had. And I never really did anything to him. Like, I just showed up, I did my job. I feel like that he was almost, now looking back on it, I feel like that he was threatened, because I was very comfortable with like my personality, and I was just my bubbly self and having fun and enjoying my job. And I feel like because I wasn't necessarily like, flirting with him, and I wasn't giving really him like the time of day, and I could see like straight through him, those type of individuals, like you just read through the BS. And I feel like that because he felt that I was picking up on that, I feel like that's where that feeling threatened came in, to where he kept his distance from me. And it wasn't necessarily like we're gonna be best buds. It's like, okay, I'm now going to be like your enemy. Like we're gonna be enemies at this point. And it was just, like I said, it was just super toxic. And I remember I enjoyed my job so much that I was having a hard time, and I felt like that I remember like specifically like in church, like praying about it, praying and praying and praying, because I was like, in my spirit, I knew that I was where I needed to be. I appreciated the customers that we had. I enjoyed what I did. I had so much fun. The experience was great. Everyone else that I worked with was incredible. I really enjoyed my job. And it was just this one person that was making my life like a living hell. And I just remember praying about it. And I just remember like the universe was like, look, hang in there. Things are going to get better. It's going to be on the up and up. Just hold tight, buckle up. Everything's going to work itself out. And y'all, when I tell y'all, it was a rough couple weeks after that. Because I was like, Lord, you said that things were going to go away, that things were going to change, and just to hold on, and that you were going to make a change. I'm like, where is it? Because it's not happening. And I feel like that I had to relinquish it all and just let it go. Like I said, bless and release it. And when I did, the actual manager of the store had come back at that point, and then he was let go from the company. But when I tell y'all, that was like a super rocky season, especially because I didn't really see this one coming. A lot of times I identify individuals that I work with in kind of like a file system. I know some people will say that like their aura or like their color around them. But for me, it's like first impressions for me are everything. So when I meet somebody for the first time, especially somebody that I'm working with, I instantly categorize them into like these little files. And I've learned to adapt like my personality and who I am, especially if I have like a leader role in that job that I have, to be able to identify that individual's like strengths and weaknesses and to work with them and their style. And I've realized over time, especially through management, that I cannot lead somebody the way that I want to be led or by my personality type. I have to learn to adapt to their personality type, and not everybody is going to take direction the same way, for example. And so that was something that was imperative to me, and that was something that he was definitely lacking. And I knew that it was just a matter of time. I mean, I could just trust that it was just a matter of time something was going to happen. So that was like the first instance. But I will say along the way, since then, I have had several job experiences where I was involved with working with somebody, whether it was like a boss or a coworker that was toxic. And I know y'all, anybody that's listening to this video right now, watching this video, at one time or another can relate to that. And it is tough. It is tough when I feel like you're in a work environment where you just can't get out of that situation and you're just trying to avoid it like at all costs. Because I feel like with neighbors, you can kind of you can kind of like hide out in your house. I've had to do that before with an apartment that I had. And you just kind of hide out in your house and then just kind of like peek out your blinds and be like, okay, the coast is clear, I can go. And then avoid your neighbor at all costs. That's somewhat easier, right? What's not as easy is when you're working with somebody that you're constantly having to show up on a day-to-day basis and you're just like butting heads for whatever the case may be. And that's where it's extremely tough because it's like you're in a bit of a situation, right? Because you don't, whatever reason, you enjoy your job or you need your job and you're just going to have to make it work, whatever the case may be. So I'm right there with y'all if you're in that kind of situation. Some people are fine until you start promoting higher. So like I said earlier, when you have opportunities in the workplace or opportunities in life when you're like, you know what, I've got big goals for myself and I want to do X, Y, Z and I'm dreaming big, y'all. And I want to do this and I'm going for that and I'm going for myself for that. Not everybody's going to have that mindset. And the hard part is I've talked about this last week with the naysayers, right? So you're going to have naysayers in your life when you do have these big, hairy, scary goals for yourself. When you're imagining, that vacation home for your family, when you're imagining paying off that school debt, when you're imagining and goaling yourself to promote to the next level in your business career, there are always going to be naysayers, okay? And it's important for us to block the naysayers, block the negative people, right? Because the thing is that the higher you go in life, the more that you're taking on, the more blessings that are coming into your life. Not everybody's going to be cheerleading for you. Not everybody's going to be happy about it. But the important thing, the imperative thing for us to do is to continue to work harder to rise higher, right? It's important to walk away. If in case you are noticing, like I did make notes. I did take notes. So in case you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing right now. That way I can stay on track this week and not squirrel. Because the ADHD is squirreling today. So, but it's important to walk away from any of those people that are not lifting us up. Okay. And I'm giving you permission to do so. And I know a lot of times, like certain people in our lives have a bit of a stronghold on us, a bit of a heavier influence, especially if it's like friends, but specifically family members. But I'm giving you permission to walk away from those that are not lifting you up, that are not encouraging you, that are not with you in the trenches. Because I tell you what, if that friend or that family member, coworker, if they're not in it with you in the trenches when the things are tough, they don't deserve to be there with you whenever you're victorious, when you're celebrating the highs and the wins in your life, okay? Because if they're not going to be with you in the lowest of lows, why should they be with you in the highest of highs? Because I tell you what, like I have a small group of my community, and I never ever, and I've talked about this recently on a previous podcast, like I never ever ever in my mid-30s ever would have thought that I would say, I have two best friends. I have two best friends. I never ever thought I would say I'd have a best friend, but two best friends? I'm like, my God, how lucky am I? But just the very fact that I have two best friends that constantly show up for me, that constantly cheer me on, that have been there for me through the darkest of times, but they've also been there for me in the highest of times. And we celebrate one another and we support one another. I know that not everybody is fortunate to have that in their lives, but trust me when I say that that person is on the horizon. If you can't say that right now you have somebody that's in your corner that's cheering for you, keep going, because that person is on the horizon. That person is coming into your life. It's just a matter of time. But I feel like it's so important for us to, like I said, block out the negativity, block out the negative naysayers, block out those that are not in it they're not in it with us to win it, right? They're not supportive of us for whatever the case may be. And be very, very, very protective of those that you're sharing your goals and your aspirations with, because that's another thing that I've learned as I've gotten older through the years, is that I used to want to shout it from the rooftops, y'all. When I had something exciting, whether it had to do with my business that I have now, or it was something that I felt like was going to take me to the next level beyond my business that I have, I've learned that I have to be very intentional and very specific with those that I share those goals with. And it cannot be, as much as I absolutely want it to be, with everyone. I've learned that it's important for me to be very specific and intentional with who I share these things with. Because not everybody, like I said, not everybody is going to have the mindset or the space to be able to, first and foremost, nobody is going to be able to meet the expectations that you have when you want somebody to show up for you and cheer you on. So throw that out the window, okay? But be very careful, be very selective with who you share your goals and aspirations with. You want to have that safe space, first and foremost, that one person in your life where you can turn to and be like, hey, I have this really cool thing that I'm thinking about. And if they're not clapping you on, if they're not pushing you forward through life, if they're not there that's going to support you, those people are the ones you absolutely do not want to share that stuff with. Because I'll tell you, first and foremost, I have had friends and I've had family members that they are the ones that are always willing to divvy out the alternative. What's going to go wrong? They're very they're not a gray thinker. They're very black and white. And when I was younger, the old southern part of me would be like, they mean well. They mean well. I mean, God bless them. They mean well. No, they don't. They don't mean well. That's just their mindset. They're either negative people with that negative mindset, or they're just kind of stuck in their ways, right? They're either going through it, they're going through the thick of it, or that's just how they've always been. But that's no excuse, okay? And those are the people I know now in my life that I'm very picky about what I share with them and like what I talk about with them. And if I have something new and exciting that's coming into fruition in my life, I'm not going to share it with them. I'm not. As much as I want to, because my inner child is like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I want that gold star. I want that approval. I want that cheerleader moment. But I know those are not my people. I'm so blessed to say that I have those people in my life right now. And I pray that if you don't have those individuals in your life, that I pray and I hope that you do. Because I just have no words for it. It's such a blessing. We can feel bitter and want payback to those that are not necessarily cheering us on, right? The ones that are in it to see us fall, the ones that don't necessarily want good things coming into our lives, those negative type naysayer people. It's very natural and it's very human for us to feel bitter and want to pay back. Oh, sorry, y'all, I had to get something to drink. But instead, what I said earlier, keep your wall up. And I feel like there's a difference between having a wall up like a mask, because I mentioned that earlier, that it used to be that way. There's a difference between having your wall up in a way where you're not transparent to anybody, that you're faking it till you make it, that things are happening within, that you're not comfortable with yourself, that you feel like that you have to be somebody else that you're not. That's masking. That's a whole different wall. That we want to tear that one down. The wall that you want to keep up is that protective wall, right? Like your armor, your body of armor, so to speak. You want that around you because it's going to be able to protect your peace, right? That's so important. It's not always up to us to seek revenge. I feel like that the most natural human thing for us to do is to immediately go for revenge. And I feel like that anytime someone comes into my life, or if they're already in my life, and for whatever reason, because again, I'm only human, and there are so many times where I will say that I'll slip up and I'll mention something that I'm wanting to try or something I'm going to do. And there's these people in my life that are like, like it's not, it's not going to happen. You're not good enough for it. You shouldn't do it. The ones like, are you sure? Maybe you should think about it. And I'm the kind of person where like, when I've made my mind up, I'm going for the gusto, baby. Like, I'm going from 0 to 100. And if you tell me I can't, whoo, watch me do it. Watch me do it. Because that fuels my fire. Tell me I can't do something, watch me do it. Because that to me is like, don't you dare tell me that I can't do something. Because I feel like when somebody has made their mind up and they have something they want to do in their life, no matter what that may be, my gosh, let them do it. Let them do it. And if they fall on their face, that's okay, because they're gonna have people around them. They're gonna be able to help pick them back up and help dust them off, and they're gonna keep moving on. They're gonna pivot, because you know what, life happens, and we have to make mistakes, and we have to try the things. We can't. I mean, and it goes back to the whole cliche, like saying, like I said earlier, is that, oh, they mean well. I'm like, do they? Do they really? I feel like the whole Southern thing, like, oh, they mean well. They're really not. um, Stay on the high road. Keep looking forward. One of the things that I learned a long while back in one of the many therapy group sessions that I was in, I mean, God bless the ex that I had at the time, that we actually sat through couples counseling. And it's not that we needed couples counseling. It was that I was going to through school at the time, I wanted to be a therapist. So I was seeking out my psychology degree. I was getting my degree, and one of the things that we had to do was like clock so many like hours in, right? And one of the things that we could pick was like the different types of sessions that we had. And one of the sessions just so happened to be it was like kind of like this weekend couples retreat kind of thing that was closer like to where we live. And I was like, hey, you know, I get hours for this, I get credit for this, you know, let's go try this out. So point to this is that the one key takeaway that I got from this was it was like a husband and wife duo. And the husband, the one thing that he said that has really truly stuck with me for since then, very long time now, is that it's imperative. It's important for us to, if you think about like your life as being the embodiment of like a vehicle, okay, and you're sitting in the vehicle, and it represents like your whole being, like your whole life, and you're sitting in the vehicle, and you're looking in the mirror. And one of the things that he taught us was what's so important is to never ever ever look back in the mirror. Don't ever look behind you. Now obviously that's not actually saying that when you're on the road to not use your mirror. Like, I want to go first and foremost and say that's not saying when you're actually physically in the car to not look behind you and use your mirror, because we want to do that. Okay, we want to do that. But metaphorically, let's just envision that you're, like I said, that you're in a vehicle, and you constantly do want to you want to glance back in your mirror, but you always truly want to keep your eyes forward, right? You want to keep your eyes forward on what's ahead, never looking back. And that was so important to me, because it is so important for us to stay on the high road. And when big things, blessings, or start to come into our lives, there will absolutely be people around us that are going to remind us of the person that we used to be. Be like, man, you were so much fun. You were so much fun. We used to go out and stay out late, and you used to go to the club. And speaking about myself, and you used to party. And who, you know, where's that person? Like, she used to be so fun. She used to be so loud and so funny. I'm like, first off, I'm still funny, but I'm making better choices in my life. And what I learned is like those people, those so-called friends that were in my life, as I thought they were friends, not really. But those individuals that were in my life, I found out the hard way that they weren't necessarily on board with the change that I was making in my life, and they really didn't like that version of myself. But the thing is like, that was truly authentic to who I actually am as a person. And it was a huge wake-up call, and it was so hurtful in that season of my life to be like, man, like, they don't really like me for me. They like this fun version, this mask that I've been putting on. They like that version of Megan, but they don't really like and appreciate my authentic self. So this was one of those moments where I was like, okay, it's time for me to bless and release them. Super tough, by the way, because that was like a group of friends that I had to let go of. But it was just, I wasn't involved in that season of life for myself. It wasn't doing anything for me anymore. But there are going to be people around you that will not exactly be happy and encouraging for your success. It's important for us to walk away knowing that God is constantly fighting your battles for you. And that was something too that I've had to learn the hard way over the years, is that it's not up to me to fight my battles. Like, it's up to me to bless and release those toxic people, bless and release the battles that are coming into my path, and to, like they say, live and let God. And that's so important, because it's not up to me to fight my own battles, because the truth of the matter is that those things are so much bigger than like myself in comparison, that there's just absolutely no way that I can do that. And I can try, and I can go down fighting and trying to constantly battle, like whatever, is coming my way. But the truth of the matter is that I've done so much, we've done so much work for ourselves. And if you're on this journey where you're trying to do better for yourself, and you're trying to have, these bigger goals, right? And this mindset, and you're trying to just to be better, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever the case may be. Those naysayers, those toxic things that are coming to your life, let it go, because there are forces out of your control that are going to be taking care of it for you. Okay. And let me tell you, it'll be exhausting. Take it for somebody that knows. It's going to be exhausting if you are relentless and stubborn like I have been, and you feel like you can take matters into your own hands. Trust me when I say it's not worth it. When it's infecting, it's not worth it, because when it's affecting your spirit, sleep, and overall physical being, you have to let it go and let it release it out of your hands. Everything, trust me when I say that everything will be taken care of in time. That's a tough one, right? Because it's not in my time. It's just in time in general. When you're taken care of, and you will be exactly where you're supposed to be. The truth of the matter is, the hard truth is that some people will never change. And that was also something that I've had to come to reality on through therapy, is that there are people in my life that I still have connections with for different reasons. And to come to the reality of that some people are never going to change. And that's upsetting in itself. And I feel like that's something that, if you're at a place in your life where you're currently experiencing that and you're coming to terms with that, the only thing that I can really share with you is that it's so important to take time out and kind of like put a pin in that, and take the time out to be able to start healing yourself within, and to pause instead of continuing on and like working. Like I think I mentioned this before, like mourn the loss of these people, metaphorically, not physically, metaphorically, that they're never going to change. They're never going to live up to the expectations that you have of them. And that's also to say those people that are in your life, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a spouse, a family member. I feel like that there are people in our life that, on the other hand, are there for us. They're cheering us on, they're in our corner, but we also hold them to very high standards, and we have very high expectations of them. And the hard truth is that they're never going to live up to those expectations. And it's so important to meet them exactly where they're at, because then and only then they're going to feel comfortable enough to just kind of like naturally go with the flow. And I feel like it's going to be comfortable enough to where then at that point you can meet each other again in the middle, and then help support one another, and then take turns with, okay, you're having a down day, I'm going to be there for you, and then vice versa. But I feel like that if we hold people in our lives that we want to continue having in our lives to a higher standard, they're never going to meet those expectations of ours. And then what happens, I feel like, for those people internally, is they feel like they're constantly failing us. And there's always going to be like turmoil and then push and shove, like with those people. It's up to you, it's up to me to determine whether we're supposed to ride it out or walk away from the situation. And like I said, I know that there are circumstances where it's a little bit harder to do that. But if you are in a circumstance where you're able to do so, whether you're able to write it out or walk away, I feel like it's so important for us to listen to like our spirit, our inner voices within, For me personally, y'all know I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I go to therapy every week. That's somebody, when you can have somebody that's like an outlier, like somebody that is a neutral party that can help you kind of navigate through that sticky situation, perhaps help you determine whether or not you are supposed to write it out, whether you are supposed to still have that job and see what happens, or maybe perhaps write out that season of your life with your spouse or with your friend or with your coworker, neighbor, whatever the case may be. Or if it's gotten so bad and so toxic to where you now have the opportunity to walk away from it, and it could be scary by any means necessary, but think about like the outcome, the other side of that, the other side of the coin, and how much better it's going to get for your life. Keep doing the right thing. You're doing the work. You're showing up for yourself. You are, again, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, you're showing up for yourself, and you just want to be a better, improved 0.0 version of yourself. Keep going, keep moving, keep pushing forward. Don't be looking back. Keep looking forward. And if you continuously look forward without a blink of an eye, keep doing the right thing. You know in your spirit. You and I both know what's the right thing, okay? We you know what the right thing is to do. But keep doing it. And the thing is that when you are doing the right thing, whether that's moving away from a toxic decision or group of people or environment that you're in, whatever that looks like, I can tell you that when you're doing the right thing, there's going to be a lot of pushback. And that's how you know when you are doing the right thing, is when there are, again, these outliers, these negative people, these negative toxic situations that are going to try to pull you back out and pull you back into that person that you used to be, or coerce you into being the gossiper of the group, right? Or pull you away from all the work that you've done for yourself, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in therapy, whether it's going for that promotion that you're wanting. You are going to have those outsiders, okay? And you want to constantly keep walking the path and doing the right thing for yourself, because it will pay itself off in the long run. And time-wise, there's no timeline on it. And that's the unfortunate part. And that's the difficult part. But it's different for everybody. And I feel like it's important to not so much focus on like the end result, but the journey that you're going through, and you're peeling back those layers, right, of the work through that you're doing for yourself. Not to mention like the benefit and the positive outcome of how it's going to affect everyone else in your life that you're keeping with you in your circle. It's definitely going to get harder before it gets easier. Coming from somebody like myself that has been in therapy for how long now? Let's just say, like math is hard. Let's just say about 12 years, 14 years, maybe 15, off and on, different types of therapy. Coming from somebody who has been through family counselor, couples counselor, one-on-one group therapy. Y'all, I've been through it all. I've been through talking about trauma, whether it was through abusive relationships, trauma that I've worked through from family members, trauma from my upbringing, from my own belief system, from how I perceive myself within, toxic friendships in the past, y'all name it. And the thing is that progress is not going to happen overnight. It's planting seeds along the way, and it's taking it baby steps and knowing when it's time to pause, knowing when it's time to, I love like it actually almost makes me think about like the training that I've done before with Matthew McConaughey. And I actually just about a month ago wrapped up his book. And I love how he talks about when in life you have red lights, you have yellow lights, and green lights. And I can't help but think about how that is in direct correlation with when it's important in our life, no matter what it is that we're addressing, to know when it's time to keep going. So that's a green light, because we've done the work, right? You've done the work and you keep doing the right thing and it feels good and everything is falling into line like a little domino effect. That's a green light. But it's a yellow light whenever maybe someone's coming into your path that feels a little bit more on the toxic side, or they don't have your best interest at heart. Or it could be perhaps that person that's not really exactly excited for you to go for that promotion. That's a yellow light. So that's something in our life where like, ooh, you know, like for me, it's like, I don't really like how that situation made me feel. Maybe let's slow down a little bit and figure out why it made me feel this way. So to me, that's like a yellow light, right? And a red light is when it's time for us to come to an abrupt halt and to make some pretty tough decisions. And a lot of times I feel like that's when maybe perhaps that we've been doing something for ourselves for so long that we feel like it is the right thing and we are making the right choices, but we're not going anywhere with it. It's not making us a better person. Maybe perhaps it's kind of like the opposite where it's changing us, but not for the better. That could be a red light, right? And then it's time to put a complete halt to it and then pivot and then try to figure out what's happening, because changes at that point, changes have to happen for sure. The enemies at some point or another are going to whisper in your ear, if it hasn't already happened, that you need to retaliate, react, seek revenge. Again, I feel like it's only our human nature to retaliate, lash out, and seek revenge. But taking the higher road and pivoting, that's one of my favorite words, pivoting and going above and beyond and just walking away from that situation, that's where you want to go. That's the path you want to lead on. Friends and family are not always going to approve of what you're doing in your life and the calling that you have in your heart. Whether it's time for you to make a move in your household, whether it's time to switch from one career to another, or maybe perhaps when, you know, you're wanting to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit, you know, whether it's like your style or, you know, maybe even like your belief system. I mean, we're not going to go too far on that rabbit hole, but if you're making decisions in your life, friends and family are not always going to be on board. I'll tell y'all first and foremost, but they're not always going to approve of what you're doing and the calling that you have in your heart, whatever that looks like. It's important, and it's so important, y'all, to be the bigger person and rise. Keep rising. Keep rise above it. You can move on, bless and release them, especially those that are not having your favor. Keep doing whatever makes you happy, whatever it looks like in life, whether it's your career path, whether it's a hobby of yours. Keep doing what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, to me, nothing is worth having, nothing is worth doing that's not going to otherwise make me happy. And it's cool because I feel like that kind of like comes full circle as what I talked about, like whenever I was like fresh out of college, I was hell bent, and even in high school, definitely in high school, but into college, the careers that I had for myself, the jobs that I was taking, I really truly was looking for the things that was going to make me happy, because I was like, if I have to show up and clock in and work for the man, I have to work for a corporate job, level job, whatever the case may be, I'm going to have to find some kind of joy in it, because I just don't, I've always had this mentality, and I feel like that it definitely didn't come from my upbringing. And I feel like that I don't even know. I mean, maybe it was like outside influence, but there's something at some point or someone along the way that instilled it within my being for me to, no matter what it was career path wise in my life, I always was hell bent and determined to find something in my life that I was going to do where I was happy. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what that was going to look like. But the imperative, the most important for me, was that whatever choice that I made, it was going to make me happy. And if it didn't make me happy, it ain't for me. And like, I would bless and release it, and I don't want it in my life. But yeah, just keep doing whatever makes you happy, okay? Because your happiness, my happiness, our happiness is the most important thing in this life. You'll soon find your community, okay? If you haven't quite got there, even if you're well beyond my 35 years of experience, if you find yourself seasoned in a different life, and you haven't yet found that community, trust me when I say, keep on keeping on. Keep your eyes on the path ahead. Keep doing the right thing, making the best decisions for yourself in your life. And that community will soon fall into place. And perhaps they're even there, and you might not even be aware of it, that they're there. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen, trust me. It's different. Timing's different for everybody. That's the hard part, right? Is the waiting. But you'll soon find your community and the people that will cheer you on and celebrate alongside you. And again, those people are not always necessarily going to be the people that you thought that they were going to be. But it's going to happen. I like to believe that. Don't ever let someone talk you into settling for less. Don't ever do that. Use that fire within that starts to feel like doubt to fuel and propel you to the next level. One thing that I can't help but think about, like whenever I just like saying that out loud and reflecting back on my words from over the last couple of weeks in my notes, was that it is so important to have at least one person in your life that is going to stand up for you in your corner. And I kind of think of it as kind of like a seesaw, where I have my two best friends that when they're going through a season or going through a time in their life when something's happening, right? Like they're just in their feels. They're for whatever reason, like they're feeling low. They're not having a good season in their life. They're not having a good day. What's interesting for me is because I'm continuously doing the work for myself, right? Internally for myself. And because of that, I have the space and the peace to be able to hold space for them to go through what they're going through, and vice versa. Because I've noticed that when I've been in darker places, whenever I've had my fair share of struggles over the last couple of years with them, that they have and make space for me to be able to go through what I'm going through. And I feel like it's a push and pull relationship. And that's important. And I feel like that it's not always the case. I feel like that when I look back on some of the people that have been in my life in the past that I thought were my so-called friends, that there was a little bit more of a tilt in our friendship, more than kind of like a back and forth, if that makes sense. And I feel like that I was giving a whole lot more of myself than, and I was constantly filling their cup up and their cup up, but then my cup in return was completely high and dry. And it was up to me to fill it, which of course that's important too. But I feel like that it's again a push and pull when it comes to not only like you and your partner, your spouse, but also your friends as well. And if you don't have that, that it's so important to find that and to keep looking for it, because it's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen. The end of the day, the bottom line is that we have to change. We can't wait around for success to come knocking on our door. We can't wait around for someone to be like, here's your goals, here's success, I'm going to hand it off to you. It doesn't work like that. It's important for us to make the hard changes in our life to make sure that it's in our best interest to continue on to be, again, the best version of ourselves. And you can't wait around waiting for others to join in on your success. And no one's going to hand it to you, first and foremost. You have to work for that. You have to work for success. You have to work towards your happiness, especially if you're at a place in your life where you're just not feeling it. There are changes that we have to uncomfortably make. And I feel like in our life, in my life, in your life, if you're not getting uncomfortable, that means you're stagnant. And if you're stagnant, that means that, to me, I think of that as you're just kind of going through the motions. And you know what? I'll tell you what. There are going to be seasons in your life when it is not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be pleasant. But if you can ride out the storm, when I tell you, if you can ride out the storm, the next season in your life is right around the corner, and it's filled with brightness. Brightness, happiness, sunshine, warmth. But you have to ride out the storm to get to the other side, to get to the light. And again, stop looking back, because what's behind me is the old version of me. It's the old version of you. It's past mindset. It's not existing anymore. Freaking bless and release it. It's not happening anymore. It's not even who you are. Stop holding on to that old version of yourself. Instead, focus on what's ahead, on what's to come. Even if it just feels like it's miles and miles and miles away. Focus on that, because that, at the end of the day, even as small and tiny as that light may seem, is going to propel you forward in bigger ways that you and I both can ever imagine. Please don't let time go by before you start making these changes. Something that I feel so blessed and fortunate to be able to do in my life is to be so young at a ripe mid 30, 35, okay? And for me to be at this place in my life, to have made all of these changes and put all this work into my life, because I do have friends in my corner, in my life, in my community, that are far beyond their years, that individuals that have come and gone into my life, that are maybe I don't keep in connection with them anymore, but I've had conversations with those that are well seasoned in their life, and either have yet to make these changes, or they wish they would have made all these changes a lot sooner. And that's why I say I feel so blessed and fortunate to be at this mindset in this safe space that I'm at such a young age, because when I feel mentally so much older than I really am, but I feel like it's because I've been through so much in my life. But I'm just so proud of myself, and I'm so excited for the fact that I am who I am, and I've come a long way, and who I am as a person, and the people in my life. Like, I feel like I have purposely kept those in my community for a reason. I'm very protective of like the circle that I have, but also those that are in my life, like they're there for a reason, and it's because I want them there. And those that I didn't want in my life, they're either at arm's length, or I bless and release them out the window, out the door. And they're like a speck of dust in the distance, because I didn't want them in my life anymore. Okay? Make those tough decisions. Make those tough decisions and take it one baby step at a time. Don't go for the gusto and go all in, even though, like I said, that's sometimes like how I am. I'm like 0 to 100. But break it down into little bitty baby steps. Okay? You don't have to do all the things all at once, but you got to start somewhere. Okay? At the end of the day, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, don't forget, unscramble your faith and find clarity in the chaos. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening. I hope that there's a little bit of something, a little bit of glimmer that you got from this podcast for this week. But as always, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Until then, I will talk to y'all later, and I hope you have a great week.